Welcome back to the next ICG webinar for UK estate and letting agents. And on today's webinar, in under 10 minutes, we're going to talk about whether there's enough training in the lettings industry, especially with RoPA on the horizon, and what that actually means for the industry and what that means for landlords and vendors. So straight in, I want to go to Ed Mead. Ed, do we invest enough in training in UK letting and estate agency? Talk to me.
Yeah, I'm sure we do. I think it's but is it ever enough? Is a straightforward answer. At a time when the only way you can differentiate yourselves from the opposition is by having better people, training is clearly a part of that. I think what I would just say, bearing in mind that people who are listening to this are talking about the ICG as well, tech plays an enormous part in compliance these days. The ability, particularly with lettings, for people to find out what's needed. You can put a postcode in, find out whether your property is an HMO, what licenses it needs, etc., etc. But in order to get all of that stuff and transmit it and stop people moving to become self-managed landlords is to provide better people. And that's definitely training that creates that.
Okay. But isn't it absolutely shocking that if you asked 100 estate agents, name me some estate and letting agency trainers, most people couldn't get beyond those fingers. And if you think about it, when you actually look at the individual firms, when we count a corporate as one, say, but because most of the industry is a one-man and one-woman bands, you're looking at 12, 13, 14,000 businesses. Is 10 trainers to go between those independent estate agents enough?
No, but I mean, as I'm sure Steve will tell you, it's about training the trainers, isn't it?
Yeah, and there's a lot to be said for that. And I think, to be fair, Chris, even though there's only 10 trainers, there's still so many businesses out there that don't engage, you know, and it never ceases to amaze me. I mean, just a quick scenario. I was speaking to a business about 8 months ago. We were just looking to fill up a few slots. So it was a cold call. And the guy said to me, he said, look, you know, I managed to get through to the business owner. I'm not mentioning names, but he said, look, we've been in the industry since 1923, I think it was. And we know everything about agency. We know it inside out. I went, fair enough. You know, I wasn't going to argue with the guy because it was just one of those, you knew you were going to get nowhere. And I went and looked on the internet, and they were the 10th rated agent in their area, you know, and they had some very, very small independents. So I think there's a lot of people still in the Stone Age when it comes to training, and you know, I think when you look at businesses, some of the businesses that we deal with specifically, and I'll use Assad and Vicky down at Location as an example, voted the best UK agent at EA Masters last year, constantly training their people. If they bring a new member of staff in, a new team member who's never been in agency before, they're straight onto, you know, a negotiator masterclass. If they're looking to promote somebody from within the business to a management role, they want to make sure that they've got all the correct skills from a management point of view. Now, going back to what you said about, is there enough trainers out there? I think Ed was 100% right. It's about, you know, there's a lot of decent people out there, but I've also heard your argument in the past, Chris, that, you know, you have to have worked agency to know what you're talking about. Unfortunately, there's a lot of trainers out there that make out they're trainers, but unfortunately they're not. Agency mentors, we take a very, very proactive approach to what we're doing. We've just joined forces with the Able Agent, you know, hence, you know, we've got the question there about RoPA. Charlotte and her team do a fantastic job preparing people for the RoPA qualifications whenever we're going to see them implemented. But you know, for very, very little money, for the sake of less than £200 a month per office, you can have a combined offering between agency mentors and Able Agent, where you prepare your people for the RoPA qualifications, and bi-monthly you get webinars where we're talking to their negotiators, their listers, their sales progressors, everybody within the business, so that everybody's singing from the same hymn sheet. And it's so important to keep everyone up to speed and give them that competitive edge over and above the other people out there, because we all know, listen, sooner or later the little bubble's going to burst. And we are going to be back to a situation where we're going to be scrapping for business. Not scrapping for business, but the best agents always come through. We know that. And it's agents' ability to recognise that they need to train people that always confuses me. Those that don't, I just don't get it.
Now, Lord Best, who's the chap that's bringing this RoPA stuff through, has said that you know, all bosses need to be level 4, which is, you know, pretty heavy. You know, not a walk in the park. And he said that people wouldn't be able to be grandfather, which meant that if you'd been going for so long, you automatically got it. Is that fair? Ed?
No, I don't think it is fair, actually. And I don't think that everything that Richard Best has been talking about will necessarily come to pass. I think there's a lot of, not resistance, but a lot of things that still need to be looked at. But I think I'd just like to come back to something Steve said about there not being enough, well, you both said about not being enough trainers. People forget video. There's so many possibilities. At Viewber, what we do is we have an online academy. So we train our people into what they need to do by insisting they watch videos and then let us know that they've watched them. We can see if they've watched them. So I think you can disseminate an awful lot of information from those 10 trainers. You've only got to go through a couple of branches down and you can be having thousands of people being trained sensibly and easily. And I think Zoom, like we're using and getting used to using, is going to be a very powerful tool for that.
Now, do you think that the prop tech industry has a responsibility to train people as well? And we've got Sandra here from Reapit. Now, Sandra, you're really famous for training the staff members of agents that use Reapit. Why do you spend so much time and money doing that?
Well, Chris, it's really simple. It's no use having a powerful engine such as, a CRM software with, for example, Reapit. It's no use having a Lamborghini if you can't drive it properly, right? So starting off with driving lessons, starting off with getting to know the software. A while ago, we actually bought software for the marketing department, but getting support and getting training in it was so incredibly hard that we eventually, after a year, said, look, we know this is all powerful, but we just don't know how to get that power out of this piece of software. And so without training, and we've recognized that a very long time ago, without training, there is no getting the most out of your software. And so we also recognize that time is an issue, right? So people train at their own pace and they train at their own time nowadays. So video, yes, absolutely. And that's why so much of our content is in fact video. So because rightly, you can only get to so many people in a classroom scenario, right? So it has to be digital.
Good stuff. So actually, tech and Zoom and online training should enable better trained estate agents. Has anyone else got anything to say on this?
I just think, sorry, Ed. You know what? I think we look at our offering now, and we're gearing everything, nearly everything, up to digital, virtual training, however you want to word it. The days of getting, as Sandra said, getting people, 25, 30 people in the room, those days have gone. But going back to what Sandra said about, and what the question about prop tech, I think a lot of tech companies need to ensure that once their products are out there with the businesses, that their training of that particular product. I remember speaking to someone who'd taken on Active Pipe about a year and a half ago. And I said to him, how are you getting on with it? And he said, I can't get the guys to use it. And they'd had it 3 months in the business. And he couldn't get his guys to use it. And I said, what have you done about it? He said, you know what, nothing. It's costing me X amount of month. He said, I'll probably just knock it on the head. So every prop tech company as well, as Ed alluded to earlier, has got to get their people, everybody who engages with them, they've got to make sure that their people are completely au fait and maximise what they get from those products, because some of the products out there now are just phenomenal.
Steve, I actually want to, Chris, I want to agree with Steve there, because what I found and what we're seeing is if training is not a value of the company, if they don't value training from the top, it doesn't filter down. So that means if it's not a core value of the company, there's no time for training. I often hear people say, oh yeah, we'd love to train, it's just there's no time. But if training is a priority from the top down in the company, then you see a very different organization altogether.
Absolutely.
Okay, Ed, give me 30 seconds and we'll close it at that.
I just think that there's so much tech, decent prop tech available that identifies where training is needed. In other words, if you're a lettings business, the tech available to help you, whether you need licenses to do the tenant referencing, all this sort of stuff, there's so much fantastic tech. That combined with people trained to use it properly is going to revolutionize the way people run their lettings businesses.
Good stuff. And boys and girls, if you're an estate agent out there, check out the ICG. I'm not being paid to say this, but they are the cream of the cream. Go to their website, icgapproved.co.uk. Is it .co.uk? Is that the right one?
Yeah.
Oh, we're there. And check them out, because they all speak to each other. It's a fantastic bit of kits. Thanks very much, boys and girls, and say goodbye to the UK Estate Agency and Letting Agency.